or at least that's what we all thought, until my cousin found a box hidden in the attic 3 months after the funeral. What was inside didn't just change everything we knew about our family, it tore us apart in ways I never imagined possible. I'm going to tell you a story that sounds like it came straight out of a movie, but I promise you, every single word of this actually happened. This is about my grandmother, Maria, a woman everyone in our family saw as a saint. She raised 7 children by herself, never complained, went to church every Sunday, and always had her door open for anyone who needed help. But the truth, the real truth, it was hiding in a small wooden box for over 40 years, waiting to destroy everything she built. It all started on a regular Thursday afternoon in June. My grandmother had passed away 3 months earlier at the age of 87. We were all still grieving, still trying to adjust to a world without her Sunday lunches and her voice calling us to come eat. My cousin Daniel was helping my aunt clean out my grandmother's house before they put it up for sale. The house was old, built back in the 1960s, and it had this attic that nobody ever really went into. It was full of dust, old furniture, and boxes that had been sitting there for decades. Daniel was up there sorting through everything when he found it, a wooden box about the size of a shoebox tucked away behind an old dresser. It had my grandmother's initials carved into the top, really carefully done, like someone had spent hours on it. He brought it down and called everyone over. My aunt, my uncles, my mom, all 7 of my grandmother's children gathered in the living room that day. None of them had ever seen this box before. When they opened it, nobody said anything for almost a full minute. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to my grandmother, all from the same person, a man named Roberto. But here's the thing. None of us had ever heard that name before, not once in all the family stories, all the conversations, all the years. It was like this man never existed. My Aunt Anna was the first one to start reading the letters out loud. Her hands were shaking. The first letter was dated August 1952. That was 2 years before my grandmother married my grandfather. Roberto was writing to her from another city, talking about how much he missed her and how he was counting the days until they could be together again. He called her meu amor, my love. He talked about their plans to get married, to build a life together, to have children. The letters kept going. September, October, November, each one more desperate than the last. Roberto was asking why she wasn't writing back. He was begging her to tell him what was wrong. He said he'd saved up enough money for the wedding. He said his family was asking about her. He said he didn't understand what had changed. Then came the letter from December. This one was different. Roberto had found out that Maria, my grandmother, had married someone else, my grandfather, Joao. Roberto's letter was full of pain and confusion. He wanted to know why she hadn't told him, why she had just disappeared from his life without a word. He said they thought they had promised each other forever. But it was the next letter that made everything so much worse. This one was from January 1953, just a month after my grandmother's wedding. Roberto was writing to tell her that he was sick, really sick. He had tuberculosis, which back then was basically a death sentence if you didn't have money for proper treatment. He said he understood now why she had left. He said he didn't blame her for not wanting to tie herself to a dying man. He said he hoped she would be happy with her new husband. My Uncle Carlos threw the letter down at this point. He was angry. He said this was private, that we shouldn't be reading our grandmother's old love letters. But my Aunt Anna kept going. She said we needed to know the truth. The letters continued through 1953. Roberto kept writing even though my grandmother never responded. He wrote about his treatment, about how he was getting worse, about how he thought about her every day. He wrote about seeing her once from across the street with her new husband and how it felt like his heart was being ripped out of his chest. He wrote about how he still loved her and probably always would. Then, in March of 1953, everything changed. There was a letter from Roberto's sister. Her name was Teresa. She was writing to inform my grandmother that Roberto had passed away. But that wasn't all. Teresa was furious. In this letter, she accused my grandmother of killing her brother. She said Roberto had died of a broken heart more than tuberculosis. She said my grandmother had known he was sick before she married my grandfather. She said my grandmother had abandoned him when he needed him most. She said she had chosen money and security over love. The room went completely silent after that letter. My mom started crying. My Uncle Jose walked out of the house. My Aunt Anna just sat there staring at the box. But there was one more thing in that box, a letter that my grandmother had written but never sent. It was addressed to Roberto, dated February 1953. In this letter, my grandmother explained everything. She said she loved Roberto more than anything in the world. She said leaving him was the hardest thing she ever did. But she said she had to do it because of her family. My grandfather's father had gotten into serious debt. He owed money to some very dangerous people, and they were threatening the whole family. My grandfather Joao came from a wealthy family. He had offered to pay off all the debts if my grandmother agreed to marry him. She had 1 week to decide. If she said no, her father would have been killed and her whole family would have lost everything. She said she tried to tell Roberto, but she couldn't find the words. She said she was a coward. She said she knew he'd try to stop her, try to save her family himself, even though he had nothing. She said she made the choice to sacrifice her own happiness to save her family. She said she thought about him every single day for the rest of her life. She said she was sorry. When my grandmother finished reading that letter, my Uncle Carlos said something that I'll never forget. He said, "So our entire existence is based on a lie." And he was right. My grandmother hadn't married my grandfather because she loved him. She married him because she had no choice. Every Sunday lunch, every family gathering, every smile she gave us, it was all built on top of this massive sacrifice she had made. She spent 43 years married to a man she didn't love, having his children, building his life, all because of a debt that wasn't even hers. My Uncle Jose came back inside at that point. He said something that made everything even worse. He said he remembered when he was a little kid seeing my grandmother crying in the kitchen one night. He had asked her what was wrong, and she said nothing, just that she was thinking of an old friend. He said now he understood. She had been thinking about Roberto. She had probably been thinking about Roberto for their entire lives, and none of us had known it. The family started fighting after that. My Aunt Anna thought my grandmother was a hero who had sacrificed everything for her family. My Uncle Carlos thought my grandmother was selfish for building a family with a man she didn't love. My mom didn't know what to think. My Uncle Jose was angry that they had all been kept in the dark. My other aunt, Lucia, said they should just burn the box and forget they ever found it. But the damage was already done. My Uncle Carlos said he needed time to process everything and stopped coming to family gatherings. My Aunt Lucia said she felt like she didn't even know who her mother was anymore. My Uncle Jose started questioning everything about his childhood, wondering what else had been a lie. The family that my grandmother had worked so hard to hold together for all those years was falling apart because of the very secret she had kept to protect it. 3 months have passed since we found that box. The family isn't the same anymore. My Uncle Carlos barely talks to anyone. My Aunt Anna and my Aunt Lucia got into a huge fight about whether my grandmother did the right thing, and now they're not speaking. The Sunday lunches don't happen anymore. The house was sold last month, and none of us even wanted to be there for the final walkthrough. I think about my grandmother a lot now. I think about how she carried this weight for her entire life and never told a single person. I think about how she smiled at all of us, cooked for us, took care of us, all while keeping this massive secret locked away. I think about Roberto, dying young and believing that the woman he loved had abandoned him for money. I think about my grandfather, who maybe knew the truth or maybe died never knowing that his wife's heart belonged to someone else. Was my grandmother right to do what she did? I honestly don't know. She saved her family from ruin, but she destroyed her own chance at happiness. She gave us all life, but that life was built on a foundation of sacrifice and pain that we never knew existed. She kept us all together while she was alive, but the truth of what she did is tearing us apart now that she's gone. The thing that gets me the most is that she never got to defend herself.
We found these letters after she died, so we'll never know her side of the story beyond that one unsent letter. We'll never know if she regretted her choice. We'll never know if she ever found any happiness with my grandfather. We'll never know if she would have wanted us to find that box, or if she hid it in the attic hoping it would never see the light of day. What I do know is that secrets have power. Even when you think you're keeping them to protect people, even when you think you're doing the right thing, they can come back and cause more damage than the truth ever would have. My grandmother spent her entire life protecting her family from the truth, and now that truth has torn us apart now that she's gone. I wonder sometimes what would have happened if she had chosen differently, if she had married Roberto, if her father had faced his debts another way, if she had trusted her family with the truth while she was still alive. Would Roberto have survived?
Would they have been happy together? Would any of us even exist? There's no way to know. All we have are these letters, this box, and a family that's trying to figure out how to move forward when everything we thought we knew has been turned upside down. If this story got to you, subscribe so you don't miss the next one.